The live stream. Um, Today, I am going to talk about. Oh, hold on. Let me do something real quick here. Hold on. Okay, had to mute my own audio there. So let's check, make sure everything is good. All right. So there is a lot of videos on YouTube with regards to ChatGPT and AI, generative AI has just become this huge phenomenon, and it's it's kind of like one of those things that when something happens, a lot of times on social media and YouTube, you get this wave of different videos, different content creators out there pushing something. And right now, ChatGPT became the number one thing. Midjourney, Dolly, so all this generative AI stuff. AI just took off in 2022. So it's one of those things where I was listening to an article and they said there are increments, shifts, and leaps. And this is with technology and things of that nature. And AI this year became a leap. And it is one of those things where it was around, OpenAI has been around for quite a while. They've been doing work for quite a while, but, this year with ChatGPT, it just took off. And now you have all of these gurus out there telling you that you can write a book with AI, you can write, blog posts with AI. CNET just got themselves in trouble because they were posting these AI-generated articles, not attributing them to AI, and so they had to take that down and do some things. So a lot of weird stuff happening with AI. But the thing is, if you go on YouTube now, they're saying how you can automate your YouTube channel with AI, and the automate YouTube channel phenomenon has been a while. It's been a lot of grifters and charlatans out there preaching that for the longest, where you go to Reddit, copy that, text in Reddit, put it through in, text to audio, software, grab some video and just post it online, or you actually go and grab somebody else's content and post it as your own. A lot of scams out there, but I wanna talk tonight about this one thing about writing a story using AI, and I'm going to show you what I do to prompt it to get a story out of AI. So we're gonna go through this process, and I'm gonna kinda show you what I did, and let me pull up the I will pull up the story itself. We are going to go to boom, here's the story. So, the Siege of Iron Haven. So, we're gonna walk through this, and we're gonna kinda show you how I did this. We're gonna show you how I did it, and really kind of, like, walk you through how do you get it to write a story, and then at the end, I will tell you my final conclusion about an AI generated story. So let's go ahead and get started here. Let me go ahead and we might as well you don't need to see my mug. Here, let's do this. Alright. Alright. So, first things first, we wanna talk about writing a story with ChatGPT, some of the basic rules that you have to do, and here I said we're gonna use the 3-act structure. I'm actually gonna use a different structure. We'll talk about that. But number 1, To get what you want out of ChatGPT, you have to assign it, and you have to teach it what you want because it just won't generate anything. Okay. So one of the first things I do is that to get the benefit of I give it a somewhat structured story, but I kinda want it to generate on its own because I wanna see where it goes. So I may start off and say, just, whatever, give me something, and then let's get a story. So let me show you how that looks um, with the Siege of Ironhaven. Okay. So with the Siege of Ironhaven, what I did was I went to Midjourney and I just grabbed a photo. And in fact, let's pull up Midjourney real quick. Okay. So let's go to bookmarks. Okay. So this is what I did. I went to Midjourney and I just saw these two images and I just said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to write a story um, inspired by these two images. And I just looked at the prompt, fantasy Zeppelin flying over Middle Earth Rivendell, and then I use a samurai bunny warrior. Okay, that's that's a story, right? I think um, we can kind of run with that. Why not? So so I started there, right? And I simply went to ChatGPT and I did this. And I said, I just wrote this. You are my ghostwriter. And so what you have to do with Chat GPT is that you have to give it a role. And once you give it a role, it understands what it needs to do. So I basically told it, as you look, you are a ghostwriter. We are going to write a fantasy story of an epic trip to Middle Earth on a steampunk style Zeppelin that is piloted by a samurai bunny. Basically, the pictures that I just saw. That's what I did. I just took the pictures I saw and said, "Do that." Okay. Um, and we're gonna include great battles and daring escapes. And I said, "Generate something," and it generated me a story. Okay, okay. So we have our story, and we kind of got an outline, and it's just a regular old story, nothing, no big deal, right? So that was the first part. The first part is to say, give ChatGPT a role, give ChatGPT a role, and then give it some type of structure, and then start from there. Next, we design the characters, okay? And you want to do this because you need a way of, again, we want to structure some things here. So we want to design the characters and we want to have personality. We want to know what they look like. Um, we want to know motivation. You kind of want to give a guide because this is all going to be part of the story. So that's what we're trying to do here. Okay. So if we go with, again, coming back here, let me pull up my all right, let's pull this up. All right. Now, in writing the characters, one of the things here is that we'll say that being specific is terrific, right? So provide detailed descriptions of the character. So I have 5 things that I want from these characters. 1, the physical trait, height, skin color, eye color. personality, and I'm giving it some examples: fierce, brave, reserved, kind, angry, or mean. Something. Give me something that of a personality. Um, I want a short origin story for the characters. So we don't want the character to just be out there on their own. We want an origin story for this character. So give me a short origin story. Um, and because this is a fantasy battle, I want to know the battle gear. What's their expertise? Is he karate? Is he a swordsman? Um, and then the motivation, because in every story, something is driving the protagonist and the antagonist. What's driving these characters to do what they do? And as you can see, it laid it out in bullet points. It gave me the name Hyro, the samurai bunny, and tells me the physical traits: floppy ears, bright blue eyes with a black nose, agile and athletic, strong muscles. Okay. Origin story: Hyro was born in a family of samurai bunnies who has served as protectors of the land for generations. From a young age, he was trained in the art of war and the ways of the samurai. This is pretty good, actually. Um, he excelled in training and quickly became one of the most respected warriors of his people. That's pretty good, actually. That's a pretty good description. Hyro is driven by a sense of duty and honor. He wants to protect the land and the people from harm and will do whatever it takes to defend his home. So, one of the things about the AI, where it being generative and it can remember, it's going to remember all of this stuff that it's giving me. And this is the power of it, because we get this outline of these characters, and now we kind of know what's going to drive these different characters. We have Gander, the fearless goose. We have Princess Luna. Um, and here's the thing about the characters that you can do. So I said, Princess Luna, it made Princess Luna into a woman. Well, these are animal characters. So I said, going forward, Princess Luna will be a female wolf. And just like that, it came back and said, okay, here's Princess Luna. We're going to turn her into a strong, majestic female wolf with gray hair. That's perfect. Okay. And finally, we got the troll. Now, here's where ChatGPT, kinda goes off the rails a little bit, because it is very, what can I say, um, literal. It really does take a lot of things literally. So, you do have to y when I said, his reputation should be on par with Vlad the Impaler, I meant vicious and feared, something like that, but he named the character. The ChatGPT named the character Vladimir the Impaler. It's not what I want. So it did that, um, and now we needed to create a city in Middle Earth, and they gave us a name, Ironhaven. Okay, so that's where I got the name from, Ironhaven. All right. So again, the story, the setting, uh, it put some settings in here. Okay. So it did all of that. So that's how we get our characters. Okay, so that is step 2. We have our characters, we have our settings, we have our scene. We have a structure for a story, but I pretty much ignored it, right? I didn't really read that story, only to the sense that I kinda like where it was going, but it's a typical fantasy story, right? So nothing great there. Alright. So this is one of the things about ChatGPT. You want to create the characters. Now, here's the idea of why you have it create the characters, because I can then this I took this description of this character, went over to Midjourney, put it in Midjourney, and this is the character that it gave back to me. So this is the power of AI, where I can have AI write the story, I can have AI generate some art for the story. Okay, so that's the beauty of asking for a character and descriptions for that character. Next, story structure. Now, one of the things about telling ChatGPT to write within this story structure is that we've kind of gave it some what we say, we've given it some guardrails. And part of giving it guardrails is that you lose some of the creativity and the abstractness of AI because where before it can do anything, now we've given it some structure. But my point is always to, at the start, let it have all of its creativity. When it's time to write the story, I give it the guardrails. And we have different story structures, and what you can see here is kind of, some examples of what it means to for these story structures. So, Freytag's Pyramid, Romeo and Juliet, this is just a tragedy where, I think Thelma and Louise would be something like this, where it just ends badly, is not a good ending, it's gonna end bad. The hero's journey, which is most of let's face it, the most of the stories, the fantasy stories, the superhero stories, this is the structure that they use because the hero never wants to be the hero. Be it's that story structure where the hero is always trying to get back to the status quo, and you're just taking them through hell, and by the time they're done, they've changed. Okay. Uh, the 3 act structure, The Matrix. So the 3 act structure plays and everything like that. It's straightforward at W, rising action, falling action, things of that nature. The Dan Harmon story circle. A lot of movies kind of use this story structure. This is the one I use for, my story, but Taken is one of those, and, let's see, the final one, the Fiction Curve, I'm not familiar with this, I don't really totally know what it means, but basically, it's kind of like that story where a lot of different narratives are happening at the same time, and they're all going to culminate into one final event. So that's, Pulp Fiction, so it's something like that. But in this case, I just went with the story structure. And so if we look at what I did, I came in and said, we are going to write the story using the Dan Harmon story structure. And then just to make it clear, I asked it to give me a list the story structure and then give me a synopsis of each chapter. How are you going to take this structure and write this story? And that's the way it is. So act one, the beginning, and you can see that it says in our story, this would be where we introduce Hyro, Gander, and Princess Luna, as well as their quest to rescue the princess from Vladimir the Impaler. Okay, still don't like Vladimir the Impaler, but we told it to what the story structure is, and we said give it a synopsis. This way, when I ask it to write the individual chapter, it's going to refer to this synopsis. So again, we've given it some guardrails. Okay, so we have Act 2 all the way through Act 7, and here is where I asked, let's change the name of the troll with something starting with Lord. I wanted Lord something, so came in and he named it Lord Malice, gave me the description. Okay. Now, we've done a lot of work. So if we think about it, we've we've really just been training the AI to write this story, okay? We've given it some guardrails, we've given it parameters, and we've given it something to reference as it's writing the story, okay? So, one thing you'll find with this AI, with ChatGPT, is that it always wants to end the story on some like it almost feel like it's ending the story at the end of every act. It's like, this is the end of the story, so it always feels that way, so you kinda have to force his hand a little bit, but then this is where we tell it to write the story, okay? Here's the key where we tell it to write the story. So, we go in, and I don't give it any instructions, I just said, "Write chapter 1," and it writes chapter 1. Now, what you'll see, one thing that again, when it comes to training this, when it comes to training the chat, it is that it's written in a narrative form, okay, which is fine for chapter 1, but in chapter 2, I told it, "Write chapter 2, use mostly dialogue to drive the story with some narration to describe the setting." This is one of those things when writing when it comes to writing that we show, don't tell type of deal, and dialogue is what drives a story. The characters are what drive the story. Otherwise, it becomes kinda like a bedtime story um, for a child, right? But you're not getting any sense of the characters. Okay, so I did it that way, and you can see now we get dialogue, okay? And not a lot. I mean, if you look at it, these chapters are very short, okay? So, chapter 2, we get some dialogue. Chapter 3, same, use a dialogue to drive the story with narration and describe the settings. Okay, so short chapter, the same settings here. So I didn't really ask it to do much. Chapter 5, um, chapter 6 is where I asked it to where I kind of like, "Hey, what if this is not the end of the story? What if there's another story to be written?" Some type of cliffhanger or something, right? So this is where I say use dialogue to drive the story with narration and describe the setting. Add the hints that a new threat might be lurking from a faraway land. So I want the opportunity to throw a cliffhanger in here. So that's what I did. Okay. And then chapter 7, same instruction, use dialogue to drive the story with narration to describe the setting. End story with a cliffhanger, um, right from the perspective of the new threat. Okay. So our hero has saved the day. They're just doing everything like that. And now what we want to introduce a new character for the next story. So we did that. And then here at the end is where you start doing a little work here about getting the chapters to the story, getting the chapters to the thing. So we'll come back to that. But all right. So here again, we wrote the chapters. All right. So what can we do? All right. One, as you saw in my story, I I did prompt the AI to change few things here and there. So you can get it to do that. If you don't like the name, you can change it. If you don't like the characters, you can change it. So it's one of those things that we can ask the AI to do those things. Um, the AI wants to default to a narrative, way of writing the story. We need dialogue. And so you have to tell the AI to write the dialogue, write dialogue, okay? And now it wrote some very short chapters. It writes very short chapters. You can tell it to continue with the chapter, but I may have to experiment and say that, "Hey, in each chapter, we're going to write maybe 3 sub acts or something like that to give it to kind of flesh out the story a little bit more." Um, use adjectives, to prompt use adjectives to prompt the AI to give more colorful language. ChatGPT is when they talk about generative AI, is predictive AI. It is typically, if a person writes this word, what are other words that will follow? It's kind of predicting. So really is what it's saying is, what would the average human say in a given situation? And it starts to generate, you know, whole out of whole cloth, new words, but new words structured in the way that the average person would produce if they were actually asked to do what the AI is being asked to do. Which means this, is that you're not you're losing the creativity of the human mind with AI because it is veering to the average, to the predictive. This is where I would say that, um this is where I would say that on the next slide, we'll talk about this. What do I think of the results that you get? Um, and finally, the more details you provide, the better results you will get. You can see that when we were going through this story, building out this story, we did a lot of work upfront. We kind of I gave it some freedom to write the first initial con I gave it some freedom to write the first initial concept. But after that, I gave it some guardrails, but I was specific in what I was asking for. I told it, Dan Harmon's, story circle. Give me the synopsis of each story, and even at that point, I could have told it, "Let's change the synopsis for different chapters." I could have asked it to do that, but I just kind of, took what it gave me. We changed names in it. So, you can see that while we were the AI was generating this stuff, we were giving it details and we were giving it some structure. The more details you can give it, it's kind of like this AI, what you're seeing on the screen, this AI art was done in Midjourney. I'm very specific in this. I said, "This is a Bantu warrior." Um, he's in a scene, reminiscent of Assassin's Creed. Um, I think I believe I told it the colors that I wanted, the type of lights that I wanted. So I'm very specific with the AI sometimes just so you can kinda hone in to get what you want. But Midjourney, that's a different animal. We'll talk about AI art, another day. So, what do I think? Let's let's go to let's take a look here and you can see. Alright, so at the end, I said, "Name the chapters," and it gave me these chapters. I didn't like them. Okay? Um, and I even told it something creative, abstract, and unexpected. Right? He gave me some I didn't like. Then I said, "Well, let's try titles that will evoke the feelings of Game of Thrones." So now you can see it did a little better, right? The Summoning of Heroes, Siege of Ironhaven. I kind of like that one, number two. Um, and then it kind of went through there, and then I said, um, and I kinda lived with it, right? But this is one of those things where I would probably go and change these chapter names. Okay. And then we said, okay, that same feeling that give me a title. And it gave me these titles, didn't like any of them because it says a game of uses game in all of them. I didn't like that. So I told it, don't use the word game. And of course, on one of them, it did use the word game, but it kind of Middle Earth, honor and valor, didn't like that. Um, so so then I said, provide me alternative names to Middle Earth. And this was the other one that we got. So they came back with All Terra. And then again, I'm teaching this AI. I'm kind of working my way through it to get what I want. And then, just kind of working my way through. Let's see. And then I settled on this one. Say, the name of Middle Earth is Arcana Mundus. Okay, with this in mind, provide options for the title of the story. So then they came back and gave me some other ones, and they kinda did some stuff, and and I went with, and as you can see, I did this, The Siege of Ironhaven. So working the I finally settled on a name, The Siege of Ironhaven. Uh, I kinda like that, although when I think of siege, I kinda think of the Ottomans and Constantinople and all of that when I'm thinking of a siege, but, I could write a story based on that. Actually, that might be a good thing. Um, we may try that because we have history of how that played out, and we can kinda draw a story from that. So, in my next, story project, I am going to use, and this I just it just occurred to me that I can do this. I'm gonna use the Ottomans, siege of Constantinople, and that battle to then write the siege of Ironhaven and see if we can come up with a different story. Alright, alright, and I had to say the siege of Ironhaven, and then kind of like, "Hey, give me what would the book cover look like for this?" And that's when I just had to do this. So, all of that to say, we finished it, we got it working, and then let's go to the final results here. Okay. You have to edit this story, alright? The AI does a fairly decent job in writing the story, but is it a story worth reading? We have to go back to what, um, if there's a, there's a writer, I think his name is Seth Godin, and he says, "You have to make something that's, remarkable." And basically what he's saying is something that's a remark, something that's worth people making a remark to it. The AI cannot generate a story as of yet, cannot generate a story that would say that this is remarkable. It's not. You have to go in there and flesh it out because there's nothing in the story that gives you a sense of place. There's nothing in the story that gives you these characters that build these characters up. We have a skeleton of a story, okay? We have about 2 or 3,000 words of a story. You have to then go in and put in the rest of the work. So, I don't care what anyone is saying with regards to AI and what it can do. I'm sorry, a blog post, an article, maybe a product description, that's fine. More technical stuff, I think it does well with that. But when it comes when it comes to the creative, I'm sorry, you have to put in some work. You're going to have to edit this story. You're gonna have to add to it. You're gonna have to build this story into something worth reading, okay? For me generating the story, this is fun. For the reader, is it fun? And if you were to sit down and read this story, you would see that it would fall flat. I'm almost sure of it. I haven't even read the full story, but I'm almost certain that it would fall flat. So, just keep that in mind, when you're thinking about, AI and writing with AI. It still requires you to do some work. Even the artwork that's in this presentation is great artwork. Here's the problem, if this artwork was associated with this story, I'd need an illustrator because I can't get Midjourney to repeat these images. Now, maybe if I downloaded Stable Diffusion, I can get it to do that, but I haven't done that yet. But Midjourney will not create the same images over and over in different settings. But I probably wouldn't ask it to do it. I would probably say, "This is reference material. Go hire an illustrator to get me exactly what I want. Give me the images that fit this story." Okay? Using, let's say, this ninja guy here to as a reference. Okay? So that's what I would do. Alright? So, final conclusion, guys, is that, yes, I love ChatGPT. I think it works great. I think it's only going to get better, but you're not going to automate your YouTube channel using ChatGPT. Don't do that. And you're not going to write a novel using ChatGPT. You're gonna have to put in some work. A human is going to have to touch this. Okay? So, don't go out there thinking like you can just write a novel. I know the kid put out a, children's book with Midjourney and ChatGPT and put it on Amazon, that's fine. Um, maybe you can get away with some little things like that, but if you want something remarkable, if you want something worth reading, something worth sharing, get ChatGPT to kinda get you started, fill in the rest with your own human creativity. That is my rant, and I am out. See you guys next week.